Prashant sort of casting a spell of doom and gloom. Industry numbers overall last 12 months have been healthy, very, very good numbers. We've seen some fantastic sales for offset machines particularly. ये क्लास में बच्चे So offset numbers are looking good. Out of that, a lot of these numbers are also for fully loaded UV presses. So we are seeing a lot of that. Numbers much better than 2014 and numbers significantly better than 2013. Nothing as good as 2008. Again, in the latest issue of Print Week, we've done a small survey. It sort of maps that. I think it's a good indicator of what is happening. What is also interesting is about 25 to 30% of those are new players. The reason I'm mentioning that is because that's where all the energy is going to come from. The second thing is, in terms of UV as a mature technology, again, this we have the experts here who are actually in the market. Our assessment is that it's about 3%. That's it. But it's not yet in the truest sense of the mature, it's in the truest sense not a matured market as yet. Again, a long curve to go, and as you can see, many, many technology options. Our other understanding is, in a real sense, there are very few pure UV players. So for example, if you look at the Pragatis of the world, or the Parsons or the TCPLs, with sort of in-house inking kitchens, so very few packaging players, or for that matter, even fewer commercial printers who are, in that sense, will have a machine line dedicated only to UV. It will be a mix and match approach, which a lot of them have, which sometimes is a deterrent. That is the second thing. The third thing which we found, and I think today's session was in that sense a fantastic eye-opener, is also de-skilling. I think this is something that we need to take into cognizance. This has been an industry which has been hard nuts and bolts and getting your hand messy. One of the things that sort of came, especially from Stephen's presentation and to some extent even Prashant's presentation, is the fact that one doesn't really need to go into the science of a lot of this is push button technology. I think with the advent of that, we will find many more risk takers, we'll find many more investments into this kind of, in this space. So like I said, I have about 103 questions, but I think broadly, I think what any of you who's looking to invest, these are I think 4 or 5 basic questions which we need to ask, and then after which I'll just open the floor to the panelists. One is that definitely when you're having lunch, please ask the respective vendor or the manufacturer or the dealer, how long does it take UV inks to cure, explain what your job profile is. To what extent does it affect the production speed? I think that is absolutely crucial. What are the specific requirements of your press? What is the kind of consistency level and curing speeds that you achieve? What are the technical aspects that you need to take care of? Things like rollers, blankets, consumables, press washers, chemicals, cleaning aids. I think this is absolutely crucial. pH levels for UV, again, whether it is important, whether it is unimportant. If you have any specific substrate, I think Vijay had highlighted something that he's working with PP and MET. So if you have specific substrate requirements, then again, please raise. And if you're going to be shifting from one job profile to another, what is the kind of job change over time that you require, etc. So be very specific about the question, because the field is still, I think, for a lot of us, work in progress, I think. Vinay, I'll start off with you. Two quick questions. One is, of course, I was very impressed with 3 of the samples that I think your customer in Delhi has printed. The materials and both the sort of substrates that they've done work on is fantastic. What I wanted to know is this in a way, and this is a question a lot of people have been asking for the last couple of years, is UV or UV LED means the death of aqua varnish, or the old traditional steps? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, will that slowly phase out, and this is going to be the new, the new ism?
Yeah. Yes, with LED it is going to be phased out, because what it does is, it opens a whole new market for the existing machines to be converted. With conventional UV this was not possible, but with LED your existing machines can be converted. So we are looking at a whole new market which is emerging out of this.
Sure. So again, your advice to printers is what? Go in for a new machine, fully loaded, or retrofit, and then move ahead. What would be the sort of working, learning, especially knowing the Indian market? That's the reason the question is directed to you.
See, for Indian market, this is a different story. You have to look at what exactly is your requirement first. Whether you want a brand new machine or you want the LED capability. Of course, most of the people where the business is coming from now who are moving ahead with the investment, they are the first time printers. So that is where it is very important for them to buy a new machine first, and maybe later on, by the time once they get the benefit of the new machine, then they move on for the LED retrofitment.
Sure. Prashant, two questions, one tricky and one I think easier for you. Cost, is it still sort of 1:3, conventional versus UV, number one? And secondly, I missed that in your presentation, is if you can also give us a sense of what the raw material and ingredients are, what actually constitutes this sort of pedigree of consumables.
Ramu, to your first question, we talked about the price. It's not cost. It's been included in the presentation of Mr. Raja that the benefit over conventional are higher, and you ultimately yield more profits or more price to your own customers. It's about the price difference, and the price difference is getting smaller and smaller. I'll come to the part that you should not change to any other system just because somebody is selling. But you should change based on the need and based on what you perceive about the future. According to what my perception and my experience, the UV starts from where the conventional ends. Conventional ends and they cannot do beyond this limit. That is where the start of UV. So
this is
your
favorite example that after you stop using the electric fan, you go to the air conditioner.
That's
correct? Yeah, something like that. So you're still pitching it in India as a premium segment?
It is not a premium. It is a part of compulsion. Nobody asks about now the cost of a smartphone because the benefits are high. And that is exactly we would like to say the people who have adopted the technology faster. You take the example of Parsons, TCPL, Boker. You name those packaging customers who have adopted. In case of flexible, it is Uflex. They are the people who realize the importance of changeover because they wanted to continue in the lead, and that is where the difference is. So I would not rate anything on the price level because it is up to the individual manufacturers to put the prices, and it is the consumer who has to accept or not accept the prices. When it comes to raw material, the challenges for the ink manufacturers are higher, as I was told by my colleagues, because it is an acrylic chemistry. The acrylics are used widely into a different field, be it automobile, be it any manufacturing process. So we are still a very, very niche. In fact, as you rightly said, that the UV itself is a 3% of the total ink business, or could be 5 including the varnish and coatings. So if that is the case in our own industry, it will be minuscule when it comes to, it is not even in decimal, it will come when it comes to the total. So the raw material supplier do not pay any heed, any attention to us when we go with them. So the usage will increase, will definitely bring the price down. I remember when I started, the price of my earlier company was 3,500 a kilo, and today it has come to 1,200 or 1,000 or even lesser in some cases.
Sure.
So it is a perceived price, but the cost benefit and the usage benefit will surpass the whole thing.
Sure. That's, yes.
Just one point to add in this. Of course, every time when we talk about a LED UV machine to any customer, the first issue comes of the first thing which comes out is the cost of the ink is very, very high. Unfortunately, the cost of ink in the whole process is a very, very small amount, 8% of the total cost in the printing. But the amount of benefits what we get out of adopting the LED process, they are enormous. So on the first thing is you have power saving, powderless operation, instant drying, everything, whatnot, everything. The most important is we are getting a new revenue, new things which can be added. So please come out of that mindset. That's very, very important, that you have to remove that ink price from the mind first and then discuss.
Raja Saab, a question for you. Firstly, congratulations. Really impressed with the case study that you shared with us at the Navi Mumbai unit. I just wanted to know, one is the learning curve, because you ultimately are dealing with human beings, manning the machine, etc. How long was the process in terms of inculcating? I know in the case of packaging, they are parked there, they have in kitchens, and then they have systems, audits, certifications, etc. For commercial printing and publishing, how difficult is it? And then the second part of it is, did you have to tweak? Because obviously when you're doing these jobs, do you have to tweak your workflow in terms of the plates, the inks, the found solutions, etc. So if you can touch upon these two aspects, please.
When you're printing a newspaper, it's an everyday affair, and we have a very limited time available to do the whole job. When you're printing UV, you have to change the ink on the machine, because we use the same tower for cold set as well as heat set. And these jobs don't come all the time. So maybe you have 10 jobs in a month, so you're printing 10 times in a month on one tower. So you have to change the ink to cold set, from cold set to UV, and from UV back to cold set. This is one aspect. The other aspect is about our Mumbai plant is one of the best managed plants. We have a wastage of around 1.5% to 1.75% overall, end to end.
Yes.
So it's like, absolutely difficult number. But when we print UV and we are printing one web of UV, we end up spending more on the wastage, because there is more waste, because the ink and the fountain don't get to the right ink water balance very quickly. In the conventional, it gets very well, because we're using it, and this we use once in a, let's say 10 times in a month. So that time we have to, and then there are issues about ink water balance. So that's one aspect. Other aspect, sheet fed, as he said, it's only 8%, but for us it's quite a lot.
Yes.
Our inks are very cheap. A sheet fed guy can buy an ink for even 600, 700 rupees a kg, and it's okay with him. But when you're printing a newspaper, the ink cost is very low. Mm-hmm. So there is a big jump between UV and the cold set. It's like 5 times, 4 times.
Sure.
So, but the answer is about this chicken and egg story. Unless we start consuming ink, the sheet fed guys will not get cheaper ink, right? So you make that happen to us, then it will happen to the sheet fed.
Sure.
And suddenly the sheet fed numbers will come down substantially, because the moment another 20 newspapers start printing UV, the ink cost will come down not by 1 or 2%, but by, let's say, 50%, 60%.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Any concerns that you encountered with production quality? I mean, for example, one common refrain has been that light color jobs are a problem, or a slight yellowish tinge on white, or a reddish tinge. Do these things happen? I mean, in terms of the sort of honesty of the production.
I must compliment Prashant.
Okay.
He gives excellent ink from Belgium, and it works very well. Maybe we are right at the early beginning stages. Maybe we have printed some 50 or 70 jobs till now, and we also might start printing something like that maybe in a year's time. But today we are satisfied with what we are printing on cold side, and our clients are also very happy. So,
Right. Okay.
I think it will take a bit of time to go to that level where, if we are at 90%, to go to 95, then the real problems come.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, please.
To say something about HT, just half a second. It is easier for any printer who just have a cold set machine, and he doesn't have a heat set, but he would like to print a heat set quality of printing on a glazed newsprint. It was easier. But somebody like Hindustan Times, who are the largest heat set printing presses, in the newspaper, to go for this system was a really challenging, and I know how difficult it was for the project team to get this rolling. And the credit goes to the entire team office to do this job.
Sure. You want to just quickly, just 30 seconds, add what you've done with UV Colset, because I think, Father had mentioned briefly about that, your own experiences with the newspaper in Telangana and Tamil Nadu. If you can just quickly share with that. Well, that's again an interesting model. I think we have Bajwa Saab somewhere here, and so what can be done? Yeah.
I mean, only say that I remember when we used to see a heat set press, and if I'm along with some of the medium size or small size newspaper houses, they will pick up a heat set printed substrate in one of the exhibitions in Drupa or IPEX or anywhere and say, yaar, ye kab print kar payenge hum? Only Times of India and HT kind of people can probably print with heat set. Today with the technology of UV, they can retrofit the UV tower on the their cold set machine and can print any substrate. In fact, we have printed metallized paper, metallized polyester on the Highline press as well as on Colorman machine. So it's all basically opening up the possibility for a common man, common printer, not just the biggies.
Sure. Stephen, last set of questions actually safe for you. There are quite a few. So one is one little thing in your presentation which you mentioned, that there's probably a couple of instances where you cannot retrofit press. If you can just, so that it's we know what not to do at least at the beginning.
Yeah, there were one or two situations. In fact, Carson was personally involved in one of these in Europe. The press itself had trouble transferring the energy ink. So it wasn't designed, it was a transfer roller that had trouble with the type of the switch from a conventional oil-based ink to, in this case, an LED UV ink. And it just caused too many issues. The drying was no problem at all. The sheets were coming out dry, but the ink was tracking through the press in a way that it shouldn't have happened. So that was one press. And if you have questions on the press type, Carson has a small list of a few that, in this case, you'll need a new machine if you want to go to the LED process, or you'll have to pick a different machine in your facility. But this was maybe we've seen it once or twice out of hundreds of machines. So.
Sure. And these are a few questions which a couple of printers must confess, I'm talking purely theory right now. So one is, what happens to ink temperature control, and what is the sort of drying methodology when you're doing with you? Is it vastly different, or
The ink temperature control?
That's right.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of people ask that question. Do you need to chill the ink? We've seen it both ways. There really isn't much of a change required to ink temperature control that's on the existing press.
Okay.
So I'd say out of all the experience we've had no issues, no major adjustments there.
Sure. And what happens to the sort of traditional auto blanket washes and auto impressions and so on? Again, do we need to tweak anything there?
There's the automation, no. From a standpoint of the chemistry used, there are some packages that work better together.
Okay.
And these are being collected around the world. Obviously, availability of one product in one part of the world may not be the same in India, but there's basically certain sets of chemistry that when you put them together have the best effect on the process. And the process works no matter what. But if you really want it to shine and optimize, there's definitely sets of chemistries that are better together. The best source of these typically comes from the ink provider, where they've done a lot of testing and qualification, but we also work closely with them. And I know our colleagues at Ryobi have done the same on their side too. So you can get a lot of information from these sources.
Does one need an agitator? Does it mean that you need an agitator on every unit, or how does that work?
Not necessarily, Carson. No.
No. Okay. Right. And the levels of automation, because I know you showed it on the slides that you could sort of move things. How long does that take place, and what is the sort of typical job changeovers that you've had?
To relocate an LED unit?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very quick. It takes a few minutes. Typically, you just unplug the LED cassette, and if you're familiar with a UV, a traditional UV, you know that there's a lot of other things that disconnect. You have water, you have air, you have a more cumbersome installation. With an LED, we sometimes call them the sticks, because it's literally a solid state stick of light. You're just unplugging the power and the water, it's cradled into a position. So you basically pull it out, you move it to another location, reconnect it, and you're up and running.
I think that we'll probably see later in the afternoon, so it'll be, better for us. One final, there are a few more, but that I could probably take it offline with you. But what can I go up to? 1.2 mm carton board, or is it?
We really haven't seen any limitations.
Okay.
Yeah, the thickness of the material really has nothing to do with the process.
Right.
Once we have ink on a substrate, we cure it. And so it would have more to do with the press. Does the press have a limitation to certain substrates? Some presses have a little trouble with different thicknesses of material. Marking and tracking can be issues, but it's more press specific, not so much the LED process specific.
Sure. One final question for Mr. Paul. He's been our host. Firstly, I think he deserves a huge round of applause. So I must say that he dragged me here to Delhi in this cold. I was very comfortable in Mumbai in that wonderful temperature. So I wasn't supposed to be here, but I'm glad I've come because I've learned a great deal today. Just one question, Mr. Paul Saab. What happens in terms of warranty, post-warranty spares? Because obviously it's new. Vijay is probably one of the first in that sense. But how does the process work, especially for the Indian market?
A very good question. On behalf of AMS, we commit that we give 3 years unconditional warranty on this AMS LED UV, and apart from it, if you people install it and you don't like it by anyhow, maybe it's not working, the inks are not available, whatever may be the reason is, we will take it back.
So I think because it's sort of lunch, this was supposed to be a longer session, but we'll probably, like I said, I have questions, I can share it with you and you can speak. So we'll probably break for lunch here. Just one small clarification I had. There is all this jargon. This is my personal thing. So for example, Heidelberg has something called LEUV, KB has HRUV, Komori has HUV, and you have what you have. What is all these jargons? Is it sort of low emission, low this, or is it is everybody saying the same thing? Like the good old days of stochastic screen?
It is a bit different.
Okay.
There was
Excuse me, I have a question.
Okay. After
Whether
this.
the same,
Yeah, after this. Okay.
whether the same equipment can be used for both sheet fed and Weber.
Let me answer this question with this also, if you permit me. Okay. First, HUV, LEUV, EcoUV, and few other UVs. These are all market strategies. I will say that LED is the best solution in the world. Either you buy from anybody. LED you miss the 385 nanometers, the peak length. If you play with the wavelength, so then you can make your own UV. APL can make their own UV 372 nanometers. So then you have to buy the lamps from me and they have to develop special inks for that. So that is not the right strategy in the market. The right strategy is be on the international platform, which is a 385 nanometer. And the second question for you is, yes, LED UV, if you have LED UV in house, you can put it into a web offset, same, and you can put it into your sheet fed, and you can, as in the morning Steve said, that you can switch to another press also with the just addition some components to brackets which you say. So you can use this LED for rotogravure, flat soap, offset, narrow web, sheet fed if the size is same. Yeah.
Please. Okay.
When is Arets giving us high-speed LED UV ink, which will start working on the machine? So we postponed our decision to buy LED UV because the ink was not there. We tried with all the manufacturers, nobody gave us more than 30,000. 30,000 was working in Japan, so they could not refuse that. But otherwise, for 80,000, 60,000, nobody had a very viable answer. So it's something very important because in newspapers we would like to shift the UV to different units, and that's only possible with LED UV. And of course the temperature and fire hazard and lot of other safety issues.
Sir, as soon as Paul Saab bribed me enough to convert. No, that's on a lighter part. Honestly speaking, every manufacturer, especially Toyo Japan, have been closely working to enhance the speed. As you have seen in this presentation of seat, that how quickly things have moved from in last 5-6 years. The challenge is to have reactivity at that speed, because you are dependent on a single peak. Unlike conventional UV, you have a couple of peaks or more peaks, so you can choose a right photo initiator to accelerate that peak. But if I see the technological development which is happening in any part of the world or any industry across, things comes much faster than what they used to come before. We don't have to wait for exhibitions to know the technology, and I'm sure probably it will take a couple of months, a year. It is a matter of clicking the right combination for the formulators to get this, because this is where the challenge is. The same happened with conventional UV, as somebody said that when your experience was, Adlakaji's experience was when conventional UV was used, the speed of machine used to be 5,000-6,000. But to tell you that now we are running at 18,000 impression per hour in a packaging industry. When you pick up any hardcore packaging, anything between 16 to 18,000 is possible, which was not possible about 5-7 or 10 years ago. So I'm sure you push us, probably it will be delivered faster than expectation. That's all.
All right. So thank you very much. Just one final conclusion. I mean, 10 years ago we saw this sort of similar, awareness programs with CTP. 5 years ago I think it was with PUR, and now I think it is with UV. I hope that next year this forum grows in strength, and there are many more of us and many more live case studies. Thank you, Mr. Paul. Thank you, panel.